The National Foundation for Retired Service Animals is a UK registered charity that supports the owners and handlers of retired dogs and horses from the police, fire, prison and border force services.
A dog handler has a general purpose dog or a GP dog. These dogs are trained to track people. They're trained to do all of the man work, the biting. We're attached to the armed response vehicles, so we go to any sort of firearms deployment. We offer backup for them. We offer backup for divisional staff, violent people, domestics. And the other part which we do is the missing people. So these dogs are trained to bite, etc., but they have a far gentler side when we're tracking guys with dementia and old people. And these are people that have wandered off and got lost, and the dog can usually find the track and get to them. And in numerous times we've saved lots of people's lives by doing that.
A hugely important asset. They are superb at looking for weapons, buried cash, stolen property. They are tremendously skilled partnerships, the handler and the animal themselves. They are more than the sum of their parts, and we couldn't function effectively without them.
From day one you start to build a bond with the dog, as it helps obviously with the training and all aspects of the training and the commands, etc. The better bond you've got, the more the dog's going to listen to you.
They are very strong dogs and they do adapt to being retired. First couple of months is a little bit strange, but they soon fall into being lazy and lying around like we all do when we retire.
When they're a police dog, their food is all paid for by the police, or their vet's bills are paid for, their kenneling, so if we go on holiday, their kenneling's all paid for. But once they retire, the responsibility then is over to the handler, and that's when all the vet's bills start coming in, and it is down to us. And sometimes these, the vet's bills can be really costly, and that's why the NFRSA is such a fantastic charity. It just takes that added pressure off of knowing that there is that support behind the scenes, that if we do have a costly bill, we can hopefully make an application and they can assist with them with paying for the bills.
What the dogs give you throughout their career is unthinkable, really, and then to go and even contemplating putting it to sleep is definitely not an option now.
They're your best friend on shift. You spend probably more time than you do with your wife, and they're great. They don't tell you secrets. The dog attaches, and the hard bit for us then is leaving the old dog at home and taking the new dog to work.
There's no question in my view that when it comes to retirement, they stay with you. They couldn't go anywhere else, or you couldn't give them up.
Well, they're incredibly useful. We use them for a whole variety of important tasks and roles. We look for horses that are about 5 to 10 years in age. We clearly want horses that have a good temperament, which you would expect if we're going to put them onto the streets and do some police work.
Potential antisocial behaviour, criminal damage, it might be something around rural crime. It also might be a football match that they're assigned to. Do Gloucester Rugby quite a bit.
They have utility, of course, in public order situations, whether that's passive crowds or whether it's violent crowds. It's a great engagement tool.
We've had horses in the past that have done 25, 26 years service.
If they've served for more than 4 years, they can go to the horse trust. Under 4 years, a bit of a gap.
If the reason they're retiring is that they need expensive operations and things like that, then we would obviously have to try and find an avenue to help that person.
An owner wanting to do the right thing, and the charity stepping in to maybe provide that bridge to close the financial strain that might be accompanied with that arrangement.
Border Force are here to protect the borders. A big part of that is the dog programme.
We currently train for cash, tobacco, multiple different drugs. We find people, documents. We can train for quite a lot. The dogs work behind the scenes. They'll come into the terminal as well and search people as well as their bags.
Michael's trained to find illegal entrants, so he screens the freight which comes off the ferries. He's just playing a big game of hide and seek pretty much, and if he seeks out what we train him to find, he gets a reward for it.
The dogs can give us our initial find, and that can snowball into a larger gang. There could be a trend.
When they actually find what we're training them to find, that's the biggest satisfying part of the job for me, to be honest with you. So you build up such a good bond with the dogs, and when it does get to that retirement age, ideally you want to keep them.
So in the fire service, we've got two main disciplines for search and rescue dogs. We've got the fire investigation search dogs to seek out the possible presence of any ignitable liquid residue. And the other type of dog we have is the urban search and rescue dogs, known as USAR, and they search for the people that are still alive.
Because of the number of scent receptors they have in their noses being up to about 300 million, whereas we've got 5 million scent receptors, they can track down a possible presence of ignitable liquid very, very quickly, saving us time and in the long run money.
So when the dogs join us, they take a number of years to train, and they'll be between 8 and 10 years on average they'll be with us. Some services find it much more difficult to look after animals in their retirement, so I think this is where the foundation can really assist in that regard.
As a working tool, the dog might not have the value to be spending a lot of money on vet's bills, and this would enable the dog to still live out a happy retirement, healthy.
In the prison service, we've used for many years predominantly search dogs and German Shepherds as a deterrent to prisoners to escaping into the public domain. The search dogs will search for all the known illicit drugs and the nouveau psychoactive substances. Mobile phones, which are a high threat to prisons through organised crime and terrorism. We'll also ask them to search for illicit brewed alcohol, also known as hooch in prison commonly. All our general purpose dogs will move on to what's known as tornado, whereby if a prison enters into a period of instability and indiscipline, namely a riot, concerted indiscipline, we'll deploy tornado dogs along with tornado troops into that environment to regain control of the prison and return it back to a normal state. So in the prison service at the minute we currently have between 700 and 800 dogs serving, and that is a mixture of search and patrol. I have first-hand experience of retiring my last general purpose dog. Her name was PD Marlowe. She served me 7 years, and we then went from having a prison dog to a fully fledged pet in the house. At the time of her retirement, it was becoming apparent she was suffering with a common disease that degenerates the nerves and the spine. And I spoke to vets again at my own cost, and they suggested that I just keep her comfortable until such time that it was unworkable. I did think of all the things we'd done together, and it's emotional because she's done it as much as I have, and I spent more time with her than I have anyone else. Sometimes it's kinder to do the bit we don't like doing, which is unfortunately putting them to sleep, and also the financial impact of if you keep going, who are you doing it for? But if the NFRSA were on hand, or a charity such as that at the time, I probably would have appealed to them to see if they would be able to offer some support to prolong Marlowe's life, but sadly at the time we didn't have that open to us, and so it was left to me on a rainy car park floor cuddling Marlowe in her last moments, and it does cut deep, and you always sort of live with those scars of every dog that you've worked with and how they went. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing that we're doing now.
Because of the work that they have done and their age, insurance is very difficult to obtain. The premiums are either too high or insurance companies are just not prepared to provide that cover. And so handlers and owners are looking down the barrel of what can be some fairly testing vet's bills as dogs get older. It's inevitable. The National Foundation for Retired Service Animals will be there to allay those fears. In other words, we will be taking care of all the medical expenses for retired dogs and horses from all of these wonderful services. What many people don't realise is in the case of the working dogs, not so much the horses because they don't fit into sitting rooms, but the dogs are very much members of the family of their handler. And so while a police dog may be chasing a criminal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by 7:30 he's on the sofa with the kids watching Coronation Street. And so they are an incredibly important part of not just our lives keeping us safe, but the handlers and their families too. And so when it comes to the age of retirement, it is a very difficult choice as to whether to keep the dog or to rehome it. And we think that that is too much to ask of a handler. And we want to be there for them to say, keep your dog, keep him or her in the family, and we'll take care of him or her when he needs us the most. We are so excited about what we are doing at the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals. And we very much hope that you will join us on our journey as we look forward to the future and we are able to protect our protectors in their twilight years when they need us the most. Thank you.